and welcome to episode 431 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where a small press makes one hell of a big noise. My name is Vince Hunt.
How did you do that?
What?
I just said a rude word and I was still laughing, but you managed to be sensible.
Because I'm the only bloody professional here, but now I've got to redo it, considering you...
Keep going.
No. Well, all right then. This is what you get. I'm joined by the creator, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And some other bloke.
Yay!
Welcome to the show. Tony Esmond's here as well. Welcome to the show, folks. In quite possibly...
We just had a fun interview, haven't we?
It's been great. Great interview.
A great interview, which is coming up.
It's
soon.
a beast of an interview.
Oh, I see what he did.
That was a stinker.
And it's a great way to start off our month of horror, which is leading up to our Halloween special. But we're going to be talking about all monsters, great and small, over the next few weeks. There's 5 shows in October, I think, gents.
Oh, is there?
I think
that's
so.
good.
I think so. So we'll be talking about indie comics, like the horror comic, the horror
eerie.
genre, ghosts, monsters, slashers, Hollywood sort of icons turned into comic books, all kinds of things, as well as things as not your books, Tony, as well as things like, I don't know, gigantic robotic dinosaur cyborgs.
Yeah.
If that sounds specific, is that because we were joined
That's
by
pretty horrific.
Yeah, and we were joined by Parsons this week to talk about Beast of Bower Boulevard and more, and a little bit of a comic book writing discussion as well.
Yeah, nice. Like, a lot of good headspace stuff there, wasn't there, about how you go about stuff, and yeah, good.
So lots, and we're not going to mess about too much before that. I mean, we have things like who are our sponsors actually?
Comic House,
the lovely Comic House. I'm just testing them, listeners. I'm just testing them this week because they're getting a little bit spicy, so I need to control.
I was just
them.
on Comic House.
I need to control them through some tough love. But Comic House is, of course, an indie comic marketplace that loves indie comics as much as you do, as much as we do, as much as anyone who checks out Comic House does. There's a huge selection of titles on their database. If you're self-published, you can add your work on there as well. Another avenue to get it out into the open world, the wild west of comics purchasing. They also have a features section on their site, and there's stuff being added to there all the time. And they have an app, a brilliant app that if you sign up, it's basically like Netflix for comics. Subscription service, only £3 a month. You get access to that growing library. What's on there at the moment, Dan?
Why is he laughing now? What is happening?
We've got the timely release of John Lee Non-Lee Volume 1, the Great Christmas Crossover. So, come on.
Totally
what the fuck is happening?
Got Headless Volume 1. Ichabod Crane is a quiet young boy at the Sleepy Hollow Academy in the countryside of New York State. After finding mysterious... How can I go on? Okay. Right. So and we've got Sick Volume 1 and Bloop and the Pigeon Pandemic, which more of later in the shout-out section. So stay tuned for that. I've managed to bring it around, Vince. I was almost
fine. That worked out fine.
No, nothing about that worked. Absolutely nothing about that worked. I don't know what's wrong with you both.
What? We're fine.
Dan sounds like he's falling off the world.
What is he doing now? A pen attacked him. We played because he went, a pen jumped out of my pot.
A pen jumped out of the pen pot, and there's no coincidence we're doing horror series of things. It's kind of a poltergeist or something.
What is a horror show? It's what is happening to this show right now. But what is not a horror is Comic House. We love them. So if you go to comichouse.com, find out more about a 14-day trial. And to Pete and the Comic House gang, as always, my eternal apologies. But if this makes you feel better, Pete, I don't think that this kind of behaviour is going to get any better through the whole show. So I don't think it was just for your sponsorship ad. I think I'm going to have to put up with these two.
No, we were quite sensible during the interview.
Oh yes, well, how could you not be?
Trying to impress our Hollywood guest.
The interview?
Yes. Speaking of which, while I try and figure out a way to admonish you both, I'm only joking. Calm down, Tony. While we go into the green room, you want to hear about some horror comics and just comic talk in general. So here is our interview with the one and only Parsons. Okay then, folks, we are kicking off our month of horror in a pretty monstrous way this week. If you've listened to any recent episode of this show, you've heard us talk about the creature feature comic, The Beast of Bower Boulevard. Cool, that's a mouthful. And we just had to talk more about it. So, this week we're joined by another guest from across the pond and the writer of the book. Welcome to the show, Gio Parsons.
Oh, all right. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's my privilege. I'm very happy to be here, and I can't thank you enough. And thank you.
A privilege.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Say that at the end.
This is weird. I'm speaking with my California accent.
Oh dear. So, just to get us, we're gonna jump straight into it. Beast of Bower Boulevard. Is that your first comic work?
It's my first series for sure. I've done a lot of anthology, little 8-page books from American Mythology. I've done a couple of Scary Christmases, and I've done a little helping out, just basically being a sounding board when American Mythology did the Willies Wonderland prequel. But this was my first venture into a full series of 3 books. So it is my virgin book for sure.
Nice. Now, you brought up Willies Wonderland, and that's probably where some people may recognize your name, because you are the writer of that crazy film.
Yes.
Yeah, I watched it about 3 months ago. I loved it, man. But I was reading that you played the Nicolas Cage part in the short movie version of it. Is that right? As well as having written it.
Yeah. So when I was trying to get just kind of any traction behind it, what I did, there was a couple friends of mine went to a buddy's garage, and then we got my buddy and we put him in a big like animatronic kind of weasel bear suit. And
where's this going? Hang on. We're big fans of furries on this show, Gio. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. So
I mean, you guys would be absolutely in love with him because he was like about 6 foot, almost 7 feet tall, and padded to the gills. And then I had a big beard, and we shot the scene that it actually ended up in the movie. It's where Ozzy, the ostrich, and the janitor, if you guys know the movie, he's sweeping up for the first time, and the ostrich comes at him, and then the ostrich like kind of picks a fight with him, and then he kicks the crap out of the ostrich. Well, that's what we shot in my friend's garage, and I was the janitor, and my friend was the animatronic, and then I used that short just to send it out to like so many people, just trying to get somebody to pay attention to it. And what happened was eventually it ended up getting to a friend of mine who was a casting director, and the casting director really liked it. And she was like, do you have a full script for this? I said, yes, I do. And I got her the script, and she said, I know that you had yourself as the janitor here, but if you got it to somebody of some talent, we could actually make a movie of this. And so I said, well, who do you have in mind? She's like, let's send it to Nicolas Cage. And it was amazing because
fair enough.
She did what she said she was going to do. She gave it to him, and he read the thing in like a weekend. I remember she gave it to him like a Friday. He read it over the course of a weekend, and on Monday he was like, "Yeah, I'll be the janitor."
Nice.
It was like,
I suppose for him, it's like a lovely job because he doesn't actually have to learn any lines for it, does he? Either.
Yeah, that's probably what he was thinking. He's like, "This is simple." Plus, like the way it's written you don't see it it does come off in the movie, but in the script, it's like, this is the most baddest ass dude that's ever lived, all this kind of stuff. And I'm sure he's just reading this, like nodding along, going, yeah.
That's me.
So, is that how you got into American Mythology then, is it? Because I know they then did a prequel comic, which you've just said you gave some advice to. Was that the intro to AM or?
Yep, exactly. So after the movie had come out, AM licensed the rights to do comic books based on the Willies Wonderland mythology. And I contacted them and was just like, hey, I see you guys are doing this comic series, and I'm more than happy to give any kind of advice. And I also, if you guys, I also kind of used it as a springboard to talk myself into, like, I wanted to learn how to do comic books because I had never done it before, but it was always something that I read and was of great interest to me. And I figured, like, well, maybe if I, can help out with these guys, they will in turn, give me a crash course on how to do it. And it worked out beautifully. We've had a great partnership.
Nice. Yeah. And that in turn, so how did the Beast come about? So you had that sort of relationship, and obviously they're gangbusters publishing. You know, they're horror. They're a horror sort of specific
IP horror sort of kind of guys, aren't they?
Yeah, I would say so. That their bread and butter would be like intellectual property horror stuff. They also do some funny things, the Three Stooges, Laurel and Hardy, stuff like that. But I'd say that their bread and butter would be that intellectual property horror, and some original stuff. But I had we had done the 4 Willy's Wonderland prequel books, and I kind of just helped in just marketing them to the audience and telling people to pick them up and read them. And then I had done the Scary Christmas books, and that was kind of my foray into comic book writing. Like they said, hey, if you want to do a Scary Christmas, do an 8-page book and send it to us. And the first one I did, I sent it into them, and they just laughed at me because it had there's 25 pages, 25 pictures or panels per page, and all this dialogue, and they were like, "Dude, try again."
I'm guessing you come from did you study film at UCLA? Did you? Or?
I studied geography at UCLA.
Oh, wow. Okay, right. Okay.
So I kind of know which way north is, But what I was doing was when I was after I graduated, I had gotten into acting. I had booked a commercial and made a ton of money just showing up and saying, "I like fried chicken." I was like, "Well, this is a great deal. I got to get into this." So I was doing commercials, and this commercial agent that was sending me out, she's like, "You got to get into an acting class if you want me to continue to do it." So I did. I started acting. And I'd be doing these scenes, and it wasn't really for me as far as just I had fun, but I more liked just writing my own scene.
Yeah.
So I would start writing my own scenes, and then I would start writing my own plays and kind of bringing them to life. And so I think that just doing from plays to movies to comic books, it was like a good transition. All except in the movies and the comic book, or the movies and the plays, you can write as much as you want. In the comic books, you got 3 or 6 panels per page and keep the dialogue down.
Yeah. So there was quite a big learning trajectory, isn't there?
Yes. Yeah, I think there is a thing where, especially for me, just from reading them, and you don't necessarily realize that it's an artistic practice, but it's also a business. So you're limited to a certain amount of pages that you can get within a book, and a certain number of panels you can ask the artist to do per page, and a certain amount of dialogue that's going to fit on that page. And you got to figure out how to take that story and make it all work within the limits that you're given.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you work closely with editors and stuff, or?
I say that again.
I guess you work closely with some editors. Did you, to sort of hone what you were doing?
So Jim Kowarek, who's over there, and S.A. Check, who are the main guys over at American Mytho, really took me under their wing as far as the comic stuff goes, and really worked with me on this is the best way to look at it. This is how you should do it. They really took their time with me, and kind of gave me the crash course on the best way to handle it. And then the other thing I learned was, you have to trust the artist with the comic book stuff. You shouldn't be the person, this is just speaking myself personally, you shouldn't be the person that tells them this is, this guy's hand is this big and this person's tie is this long. No. You just give the description and let that artist do what they're talented at and just create it on the page.
I think camera views as well, it must be another thing. I know we often talk about that when we script stuff, this can be seen overhead, this can be, a bird's eye, and a worm's eye view and stuff like that. I mean, that's something that you would probably specify in a movie script or a play, would you, but not in a comic? Or
a lot of that stuff I've kind of learned just for both in writing screenplays and for the artist in the comic book, is just kind of give a broad description of what you think it should look like or feel like, and let them create, especially if you trust them, because the director of a movie, it's not going to be like a coloring book where they're just going to fill in the gaps. They're going to make it their own, whether or not you tell them this is the way it should be or not. That director's going to go, well, I'm the director. I'm going to, do it the way that I want to do it. And that's what they've been hired to do. And I think the artist too, it's you can give, if there's something extremely important that you need to get across for the purposes of the story, get that in. But otherwise I've had the best luck just going keeping it very simple and just letting them create.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about that difference between movies and comics, and in a way, and not this isn't always things that happen, but often in comics, the movement happens between the panels. You know, whereupon in a movie you can write a man does a somersault and punches, but you know, in a comic it's somersault, break, punch. You know, there's different things going on, aren't there? You know,
I was going to say, in a lot of the this is a good example, just as far as script to screen in the Willies Wonderland movie. The janitor does a lot of like super ninja fighting. Like I wrote it in there, like he's doing like Bruce Lee stuff and he's doing flips against the wall and he's doing all this stuff. But then the director gets it and he's got 8 hours to shoot the stuff. And now there's only 6 hours. He's like, I'm not doing any of this. He's just going to punch him in the face. You know what I mean? It's like, so I think that it's good as far as a screenplay. I think just to keep the reader entertained, like basically you got to get it. You have to get who's ever reading it just to like want to continue to read it. So with a screenplay, here, this is a good screenplay to comic things that I'll say as far as just anybody out there that's doing both. With a screenplay, I think you can be a little bit more artistic with your action and your words and your stuff, because even though the director is going to eventually take it and do what they will with it, you still want to be able to get that director hooked, get that producer hooked, get that actor hooked. And if you can do it more, just throw on all the bells and the whistles when you do the script, that's fine, just to hook those people. But when you're doing the comic book and the comic book's getting made, you don't need all the bells and whistles. You can just go very simple with everything and keep it just as minimal as possible, as far as me. Just so the artist knows what they're gonna create on the page. I think with the script go a little bit bigger, with comic I go a little bit smaller.
I think that's sage advice. Totally.
Yeah. It keeps like the rhythm and the pace up. Certainly with I think reading a comic script when you're an artist is a very different experience to like a writer reading it as well, isn't it? They want to know what to draw, but they. If we're talking 3 pages of a script just to describe one panel,
that's the story about Alan Moore and Watchmen, isn't it? Famously, that he when he sent it to Dave Gibbons, he's got like pages and pages of actual typewriter type on a page. That he would fax him. And Dave Gibbons would read it once, then go back through with a highlighter and just highlight the bits he needed to know. Yeah. Which in a way, I don't kind of mind, because I think Alan's kind of giving the mood and everything, which he's read. He's ingested it, and then he just goes through and like, this is what I need to draw. Yeah. Well, I've got it here somewhere,
I think from if you were to give somebody just a script to read, like on an airplane, like I'm flying home tomorrow. If I was flying home, would I rather want to read a movie script or a comic script? I'd much rather want to write the movie script, because it's going to read more like a book and I'm going to be able to feel more from the book. I think the way that I've seen the comics, it's not as fun to read without the words without the art. Once the art comes in, it's just like, wow, it just changes everything drastically.
I mean, do you find there's an immediacy to comics that you don't get with film? Because I'm guessing Willies Wonderland was years in the making, but with American Mythology, we read your comic about a month ago, and I messaged you the other day, and you said it's next issue 75% done. We should have it any minute. So it's you're getting from the brain to the to the product so much quicker.
When you come, like for me, when I came from doing plays, you write a play, then you rehearse the play, then you put up the play, and there's like the words and what you've written becomes a product on stage, and you can see it, and it pays off. And I think that one of the things that I find frustrating about writing a script is that unless you're doing a short film that you can produce yourself, if you're trying to get somebody to actually make the movie, it could be like you're saying, like Willies Wonderland, take a decade. It takes a long time, and you can just have this thing that nothing happens with it, and it feels like an unfinished product. With the comic books, like you're saying, Beast of Bower Boulevard, we finish the script, then the artist works on it, then you're getting pencils of the art. Wow, look at that, now it's ink, now it's colored. It is a thing. It's like a reward system to your brain where like, ding, it's paying off. Oh, I'm getting the reward. So
there's nothing like waking up and looking at your emails and thinking, God, the paint, the art's in for this page. How does that look? It changes because I'm just a writer. The other two guys are writer artists. But when I get a page of art through, it almost changes how I view a comic a little bit as well somehow. I mean, have you had to adapt as you go along, or?
Yeah, I would say that I've had in the short time that I've been doing this, one of the things that I've tried to trick my brain into doing is not imagining the way that I want to see it. I just want to be surprised with what the artist comes up with. And I think that's like that. And I've been extremely lucky with all the artists that I've worked with that they have enhanced everything that I've put down. And I would say that with the movies too, that like the directors, the actors, and the artists that I've worked with have all enhanced the product and made me as the writer look better than I actually am.
I agree, man. Yeah. You get a good writer. That's why it's a collaboration, isn't it? You know, that's why.
It is.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The movies. Oh yeah, sorry. I was going to say.
Sorry, mate. No, go on. Please do.
No, the movie's a collaboration of hundreds of people all working together, and then the comic book is a collaboration of dozens of people all working together. And even though you don't really see it or read it in the credits, but yeah, there's hundreds and dozens of people that all kind of bring it to life.
Yeah,
I mean, but like normally, like with a comic, like the core group is like a band, isn't it? Really, you got like you got the writer, artist, colorist. I mean, the publishers are all doing the important work of setting it all up, PR, and setting it all up so it can go out in the world. But when the story's being created, it's a more intimate thing, isn't it, between like a writer and the artist, etc. I mean, what was that collaboration process like for you to have that sort of back and forth?
It was actually with all the artists I've worked with, it's been very smooth. There's never been any sort of conflict or any sort of issue. It's always been like, for me, it's always been, wow, I got really lucky. You know what I mean?
We should really say here that Carlos Rod is the artist and the colorist is Carlos Lopez, letters by Fabricio Grelle as well. Yeah, because they do a superb job in this as well.
Exactly. And what I'll say is that all of those people, it's like, again, just like you're saying with the band, like they're all. I was reading an article recently where it's about the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and it was Flea and Anthony Kiedis talking, and Anthony Kiedis says like he's just this like foolish lead singer that happens to be with three of the greatest musical talents that there have ever been. And I kind of feel like I'm kind of the same way. It's like, yeah, I can write this stuff, but once it goes to those brilliant artists, it makes everything better.
Yeah. So were you put together with them by AM? Were you by American Mythology?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's how I met them.
Have you met them yet?
Them. No, we've only spoken via email or Instagram or Twitter. We've because I think Carlos is in Mexico, and some of the other artists I've worked with are in South America and in Italy. So yeah, everybody's all over the world.
That's part of the beauty of sort of modern comics, though. Like,
totally.
So many writers can collaborate with people from like South America, all over the world.
All the time, wasn't it? Yeah, we've been doing that for decades now, haven't we? The UK basically grew its comics industry on South American, Spanish, Italian eyes. That's how it went. Yeah, but I think because it was cheap.
Now it's the press of the button to send the artwork over. Then it was sending the artwork by hand through the mail, and it got lost. And
you chose the right time to start making comics, Dio, basically.
I definitely did.
But in terms of like Beast itself, one thing I do notice about like the look of it, it's a bright and colourful like creature feature sort of book. We've spoken on this show many times, and we'll probably speak over this month when we're talking about horror, that a lot of especially like independent horror like comics, dark, gloomy, which is brilliant if you've got that sort of story, but some of it's too dark or gloomy, or you can't really see what's going on.
Yeah, not being able to see is a big issue we talk about all the time. Yeah. But like Beast is very much from page one. It's Technicolor, like just
it is.
Yeah. Was that always your vision for it to be like, right, this is going to be a big, bright horror story?
Yeah, well, just relating it back to Willies Wonderland. Willies Wonderland was going to be like a movie that you found in the annals of Blockbuster that you didn't know, like it's been 40 years and I didn't know this was there, And so the comic book, Beast of Bower Boulevard, was supposed to kind of be the same way. There's like a hope to me that it turned out it manifested that it would be like a comic that you found that was made in the 80s and you just didn't notice it was in your closet, and all of a sudden you picked it up and boom, there it is. And so that was a note that I put, I think, at the very beginning of the script, is just like, this is like an 80s style, so bright neon colors, especially when she's like the very first, the very first panel is like she's in that 80s ski suit that's like neon pink and green and stuff. It's like, let's have it kind of stylized like that. I think that just with anything, if you can stylize it, with movies, with comic books, if you can make it your own, then it kind of helps it to stand out in the marketplace. And so that was kind of a note, and I'm glad that it came out so well, those bright colors and just that kind of style.
I get you. Interesting. Now, did B start as a movie script as well?
Yeah, that's right. I had gone to Whistler in Canada, British Columbia, and while I was up there, you get off the plane in Vancouver and then get on a bus, and it takes you like about an hour north, and you're really secluded from anything when you get into Whistler. It's just, it's just the town. And that's kind of where I came up with the idea. It was like, well, what happens if something awful happened here? And then I don't know where Robot Dinosaur manifested, but I would be like, I was like, well, if there was a robot dinosaur that just absolutely obliterated this place, nobody's coming for at least a while. And if there was a blizzard and a huge snowstorm, nobody's coming at all. And so that was kind of the manifest of the idea was there. It was just, ski town. Cause I grew up in Lake Tahoe, which if anybody overseas, it's right on the border of California and Nevada. It is a ski and snowboard haven. There's a lot of world-class ski resorts. They had the Olympics there in the 60s. So I was very immersed in that ski culture anyways. But then I also just kind of like crazy wacko stuff. And I just think that an idea that would stick in my head is just, militarized robot dinosaur on a rampage. But then the other thing I was thinking about is like, you've seen these movies. Obviously, there's Mecha Godzillas and there's all sorts of stuff like that. But in those movies, in the Pacific Rims, it's always big robot versus army versus jet planes, that kind of thing. And you've never had like human versus giant robot, and what would you do in that situation? And that's kind of like what I wanted to tackle, was like, it's you versus it. How do you win?
Well, it's that kind of classic scenario of kind of you're isolated, there's no outside help, and you've got to kind of, these people have to deal with this scenario as it unfolds. And it's such a good way to kind of like focus on characters and how they would react, and everyone can kind of project onto it. Do you know what I mean? Because you think, oh, I'll do X, Y, and Z, and some characters do that, some characters don't.
Exactly. That's the same. Like, everybody would like to be the janitor in Willy's Wonderland. You would love the opportunity to be in there and have something come at you and just be able to beat the crap out of it. Well, it's the same way with this comic book. It's like, if I gave you like, and we'll find out in book 2, this isn't a spoiler because you got to fight the thing. You'll find out in book 2 that you're going to get some sort of like crazy video game guns. All right. We got this monster that's created. You're going to get your video game gun to go fight the thing. And it's going to be you versus it. And how would you handle that situation? And just like you were saying, Dan, you can just, imagine yourself, taking it down, and what you would do and how you would do it and all that kind of stuff, and kind of get people's imaginations going that way.
One of the things is like, when the whole zombie films, someone would always act like an absolute wally, and you're like, no one would act like that. But then if you looked at like the pandemic, people were doing stuff that was just like, why are you doing that? That's crazy. And it's like, that's real. People will act like that.
I was in a Costco, which is like a huge grocery store in California. Just they sell everything in bulk, and it was like that. It was just all these psychopaths just filling up on toilet paper, and paper towels, and running me over with their carts. It was just everybody. This was like March 18th, 2020. Everybody just going nuts. It was like something out of a movie. But yeah, everything that you think that would never happen happened times a million.
Yeah.
I suppose putting it in the 80s as well is great, because you haven't got the internet and you haven't got cell phones.
Right. Yeah. That's the other thing I think that I try to avoid with stuff is just the cell phones, just kind of anything that would kind
of horror in a lot of way, like cell phones and modern technology, or how do we Google this?
Every single horror movie is like, oh, my cell phone is down. Like, we've seen that scene like 1,000 times where your phone doesn't work. It's like, okay, we get it. Just get rid of it,
Yeah.
I love when they say, "Oh, I didn't bring my phone." It's like it's 2023. Every super glued to everyone's fucking hands.
Yeah. People would be having a panic attack if they didn't have their phone these days. They'd be like, "Oh my god."
One of the things we talked about, Gio, was in the Beast is the structure of the comic. So I know you've got, is it 5 variant covers? I think you've got on it.
4 for the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you lead up to showing the Beast on the last few pages, don't you? This fucking incredible cyborg dinosaur.
Only in comics can you say something like that.
Yeah, I know. How good is that? It'd be shit if it was Full Moon Studios, wouldn't it? But it's it works so well in the comic. But you also show him in the cover. So was that a discussion you had?
Yeah, I think so. I think that as far as putting him on the cover, because I understand what you're saying is like you don't want to give away what it is,
but you also want to sell comics. That's the thing.
That is the thing. Is like if you don't put it on there, if you just keep it hidden then I don't know if anybody looks at that cover and goes, oh, this, especially in a time when there's already 1 million strong IPs that just absolutely dominate the comic industry. Like you just got to get somebody's attention. So I think that was the idea of just putting it on the cover. Is just like, oh, let's just give away the game. This is what it is. If you're into this thing, take
you then build attention anyway. Which works for me. Yeah.
If you want a cyborg dinosaur, you're not going to go wrong. You're not going to get misled by picking that comic up.
This just thing, I can see some little girl picking it up because she just sees a ski hill and there's some snow. Oh, this will be fun. Oh my god!
I mean, what other imagery would you? I'm trying to think what other imagery you would have to kind of sell the idea.
You get a chainsaw and a scale. You would get some, but it still doesn't work though, does it?
A silhouette of the dinosaur, or I don't know. Yeah.
For instance, like if you just had like a saw blade and some blood, people might think it's a little bit sore, hostile kind of thing, and it's you want to sort of communicate this is the kind of book you're getting.
A big monster, yeah.
There's a reason that there's these places that get paid, a couple $100,000 a year to be able to make these. To be able to market this stuff.
Yeah.
So do you get a say in the variants? Do you about who does a cover or?
Well, yeah, we talk about what we want on the covers for sure, and I have Louise is a buddy of mine who did the variant number 1. Carlos did the Kickstarter variant. And Buzz did a couple cool ones, and I worked with those guys on the Willies Wonderland stuff, and I worked with them on some of the Scary Christmas stuff. So we trust each other and we're all friends. And so, if Jim goes, hey, I got these guys that want to work on it, then let's do it.
Yeah.
I say one. Go on, Vince.
No, go on, Dan.
Well, I was going to say, shifting a bit tonally in the Beast, like we start off quite tight focus with the mother-daughter relationship. And I've found that one of the more compelling parts of the book. I really enjoyed that kind of the interaction between the two of them.
Different. You don't see that, do you? The almost like a painful dynamic between them and the boyfriend.
Oh man, they were at each other's throats straight away.
For everybody that doesn't know, I'm traveling right now. I'm just moving my space real quick, so just give me a second.
No worries,
man.
No, you know what? I think that we talked about, and I may have skipped over when we were talking. Is like one of the things that that the Beast was originally it was a movie script, and this was prior to me knowing anybody in the comic industry, so I had written it as a movie script. But as things progressed, and I took a look at so let me go back. So because it was written as a script, there was all that development of the mother and the daughter and this guy that's come into their lives who's different from her and she doesn't like him. So there's that's a theme that gets hit on throughout the entire comic book. But in the script, I could hit on a little bit more because I have more time and I have more just pages to put into it. But as it goes into comic form, it goes down from 90-page screenplay to 3 20-page paneled comics, which is like, if I was to cut the script down, it'd probably cut out like more than like 50% of the movie, I would think. And so in doing that, I just really had to figure out where to trim, where to scale down. and some of the relationship definitely does get affected, but I wanted to try and keep as much of that in there as just like an emotional connection throughout the entire story. People that could relate to it.
How did you look at that sort of editing challenge? Because other people like have screenplays and they try to turn them into
Kill Your Darlings, isn't it? It's all that
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But was it actually like quite a useful exercise to figure out? Because with comics as well, you really need to cut the fat from the meat in order to get what you need. You know, how did you find it an enjoyable experience that you learned from?
Yeah, I'd say that when I first went to do it, it was not an enjoyable experience because it was very difficult. So at first it was not an enjoyable experience, and having completed it, I'd say it was a really great thing, and it made the story better because of it. And should I go back to rewrite that as a script, I would have a better experience. Just writing it as a script now that I've cut out and just kind of figured out the best parts of it. But yeah, I think that if you are a writer and you have to be able to just say this gets cut and not kind of worry about it. You just got to do you want to try and fight to keep something that, like the most important thing is getting that comic book made. So that's the most important thing. And if you have to sacrifice certain story elements or certain shots or certain things that you want in there, then you have to do it.
So if a screenwriter was thinking, right, I've got this screenplay I want to transform into a comic book, how would you sort of like propose a kind of crash course for them to get their head around the language?
Two very different, very different mediums, aren't they?
Yeah. I would say that if you were a screenwriter, that your best bet in getting a movie's, like getting it to movie, unless you're established. If you're established and you've made a movie, it's a little easier. But let's say you were like me and you're just trying to break in any way, shape, form. This is with writing. This is with anything. Then, like what I did, I made the short film, and then I got that to people because it was only a minute long, and it's hard to get anybody to read anything. So it's like figure out a way to do it. So with a comic book, what I would do if I were to go back and need to figure it out without knowing anybody was, first thing I would do is boil down your script to the most important parts. And just boil it down. If you can get your whole entire script just to be like, let's say 20 pages and it's just really quick, boil it down to that, because you're not going to have, like, let's say the budget to be able to do 3 books. You're just going to be able to do 1. So boil it down. So you just get so anybody that you're giving this comic book to is going to get the gist of your screenplay immediately, and then find a talented artist. And we've talked about it here. There's artists all over the world who are, clamoring to work and want to work with talented people. Reach out, get a hold of one of those artists, and then put your comic book together just as, 10 to 20 pages, and you don't have to go overboard, especially if you don't have a lot of money, just enough to like pay the artist so they can, make a living at it, and you can get your product. And then anybody that you're going to show it to is going to realize that this is just your kind of one man or one person band. And, they're going to look at what you've done, and they're going to be able to see the potential in it there. So I wouldn't necessarily tell anybody who's getting into the comics or the screenwriting, like if you were going to do you hear about people doing short films that cost thousands of dollars. I don't think you need to do that. And I don't think you need to do that with your first comic book either. You just have to get something like I was doing with the plays. You just have to take the writing that you've done and manifest it into something that's real so people can see it, and then say, okay, let's redo this and let's do it properly this time, and let's make it as best as we can. And so that's what I would say to somebody. I'd say boil it down, find an artist that you want to work with, do just black and white, and then start getting that out to people. And then that'll spur people to want to read your screenplay, to want to read more of your comic book. You just need an example that you feel strong to get out and give to somebody. And the other thing I think that I would tell people is do not be shy. Like there's like everybody's listening to us right now, but if you're I'm looking in Tony's background, and there's tons and tons of books, so there's tons of competition.
They're going to fall on him one day and kill him.
I'm going to die under those one day.
That'll be his tomb. But if you're just sitting there quietly letting everybody else kind of, if you're not constantly out there saying, I have something good, you have to take a look at it, nobody's going to find you. So you got to be able to just get it into somebody's face. Say, take a look at this, email people, be kind and be courteous with everybody's time and with their attention, but make sure you get it in front of people and ask for what you want. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Don't keep it on your laptop.
I think what people will like about what you've done here, dude, is, and we get an awful lot of people who have a film script and doesn't get made, so they try and make it into a comic. What you've done is you've learnt your bones by working on 8-page stories and anthologies, which is how people learn their bones here. Anthologies are massive here in the Indian small press scene up until 2000 AD, which is obviously probably the biggest anthology, and they learn to tell a story, get in and get out in 8 pages. Which is just perfection for learning the longer form comics sometimes, I think,
Yep, definitely. Those Scary Christmas comics and those little anthology comics were the best thing that's ever happened to me as far as the comic book goes, because you had to tell the full story in 8 pages. And I'm telling everybody right now, just the advice I gave you to boil it down, you can tell a full story in 8 pages, and it can be something really magnificent. You can do it in as little as 8 pages, for sure.
Yeah. You're just going to need to get your pacing and everything else right, because sometimes, and you get this with comics and you get this with all media, TV, movies, or whatever, sometimes there's a lot of nothing and then everything happens really quickly. Now, in a comic, you don't want 6 pages of just long, drawn-out setup before everything happens in the last 2 pages. You need to invest people, don't you, pretty straight away. It's... real estate is
you got to care about things and people before you fucking kill them with a giant dinosaur.
Speaking of which, obviously, in a show don't tell kind of medium, Beast is very much a show, neon explosions, gore, and second issue, which is on its way, we've got to the point where chaos is about to reign, without any spoilers, of course. How far does this go?
There's 3. Is it 3 issues? Is it, Gio?
Yeah, it's 3 issues, and it's I think I named the issues: the Blizzard, the Beast, and the Battle. That's not really a spoiler, but if you haven't read book 1 is the slowest book because it has to set everything up. So we have to get to our location, we have to meet the characters, we have to do all that stuff. The second book is, now we're battling, or now we're trying to escape the Beast. Basically, the first book ends on a cliffhanger where the Beast is revealed, and it's got this, a laser repulsor beam for one arm and a buzzsaw for the other, and it's 3 stories tall, and why is this thing here? How did it get here? We were supposed to be in a little vacation town, and this thing's just rampaged the whole entire place and wiped everybody out. So the second book is going to kind of explain why this is all happening, and it's also going to be it's both the answers to the questions you want to know from the first book, and a chase as the Beast tries to wipe out the remaining survivors. And then again, not much of a spoiler, but the third is the Battle, and that's where they got to take the thing down, and or it's going to take them all out. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
As a horror writer, how do you enjoy? Do you enjoy the killing? That sounds really weird, but we're all serial killers in our own way.
As a fan, I enjoy watching the killing.
Yeah,
so there you go.
On the internet, there's kill count videos. There's all kinds, especially with horror. Deaths are important. So when you're writing them, how do you go about writing the death of
enough impact, but not too much? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I got a note the other day from a producer that I was working with on just a movie project, and in that movie project, there are just from the first kill is extremely wild, and then the next kill is extremely wild, and the next kill is extremely wild, because the directors of that movie, we had talked about it together, and they had done movies. They had done the movie Cooties that had Elijah Wood in it, and Rainn Wilson, and they had done the movie Becky that had Kevin James as a Nazi bad guy, and they came from this world of just awesome kills. And the note that we were given was, let's build up to it, because we didn't want to just, go from one wild one to the next. And I think that there is a thing in a lot of horror movies where it's like, it can't just be a scream like stabbing. It has to be somebody that it's like an Itchy and Scratchy from The Simpsons, where you got to put grenades in their eyelids and dynamite down their throat and throw them in a vat of acid and hit the electricity at the same time. And I think that there is an audience that's clamoring for that. So, when I approached the kills in Beast of Bower Boulevard, it was like, give them the buzzsaw, because, we have to make this villain unique. So I thought, like, a buzzsaw for a hand, a repulsor ray for another one, a giant tail that you can smash people with, some guns, some rockets. It's got the whole entire thing. Basically, it's just to talk about it a little bit more. It's like, the U.S. government spends so much in defense. Like, so much money in defense, but the generation that's coming up all played video games, and they're all millennials, Gen Xers who have just been playing Doom and stuff. And you give them that budget, then they're going to create some wild stuff. So that was kind of like, that was my theory. It's like, you have a never-ending budget. You can just create whatever weird thing you want. You've grown up with this sadistic sense of humor. You may create something like that,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can make a tank for $1 million, or you can make this like killer machine for a couple other million. Well, we have like an unlimited budget, so why don't we just go with that? But yeah, just to get back to the kills, it's like, I think that there is an audience that's clamoring for it, so you have to make sure that you give them what you want.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
Nice.
and I did that in the Willies thing, where it rips out the spine of the ostrich and he curb stomps the gorilla into the urinal. You gotta have stuff like that.
Oh, by the way, before I forget, please tell Carlos Roddy reminds me of Pat Broderick.
Okay,
It's
absolutely.
really lovely, clean artwork. Yeah, really good. Yeah. Every time I look at it, I think Pat Broderick, which is a big compliment.
It's beautiful art in the book. It's just real nice.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
So obviously, your horror.
Yes.
Is there anything out there that people don't know about? And think about it, like, as you said, it's all about the stuff that you didn't realize was out there that you discovered that's your new favorite.
As far like for like comic books for horror, Halloween coming up. I know it's October.
Yeah,
we
suggested, those who don't know, we sent you an email just to say any chance of a recommendation. If you want to have a think. Yeah.
Yeah, well, again, I'm working with American Mythology, and so it would be a mistake for me not to recommend a couple of the great books that they have. If you haven't checked them out, they always do a Hatchet Halloween special, and I did a little editorial art in the back of that one. So I definitely that's a recommend. They always do a great job with the Hatchet series. The Hatchet was a movie. Victor Crowley's got Hatchet. He's killing people in the South. It's great. So that would be one that I would recommend. They were doing the Fright Night, but based on the 1985 movie. So that was a good series that they've been putting together, Jim and Scott and everybody over there. So that's a great one. And then another one they did is Night of the Living Dead. Kin is what it's called, Night of the Living Dead Kin, and that's a spooky one. I've done a little editorial work on the back that's doing some fun art. So those are my 3 Halloween recommendations for you comic book lovers out there. Would be to check out those 3. Those are some good ones.
Nice
one, yeah.
Nice.
Great.
So Beast, then, going forward, where can people find out more about it and get their hands on issue 1 and get ready for issue 2? Where's the best place?
Yeah. Well, again, if we're overseas or just anywhere, you can always get the PDF version via the American Mythology website, which is americanmythology.net. Find it there. You can purchase it for, I think, $3.99 on the internet, and it'll just come right to your email, and you'll have a beautiful digital copy of it. They also will email or they'll also mail physical copies, and you can always go to your comic book store, your local comic book store. This is what I tell everybody: if you want a physical copy, go to your comic book store, say, I would like a physical copy of Beast of Bower Boulevard. Could you please order it for me?
It's in Diamond, isn't it? AM,
yes, it is.
Massive Diamond section. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Good stuff,
exactly.
man.
So make sure you get it there, because it's great, and I think we all like the convenience of being able to read a comic book via our smartphones and via our iPads and stuff. But there's nothing like having the actual physical paper in your hand.
Agreed. Yeah, I double dipped on it when I was in America. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, because you sent it to us, but I got a physical copy. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
you can tell, and you can tell just when you get that physical copy in your hand, it's just done. You know, it just makes things real.
Yeah,
it makes things real.
Totally.
Yeah.
Vince, the Fright Night, one of the Fright Night covers, I looked at it and I thought it could have been your art, man.
Really?
Yeah, you have to look at it. I'll find that copy.
I love Fright Night as well, so I'm going to
have to
yeah, love that.
I quite like the remake.
I don't mind it.
I don't mind it. Yeah. The CGI, I'm not fussed with.
Yeah, I don't like those kind of, when they do their CGI horror faces. It's a bit,
I like it to be physical.
Tenant's okay in it.
Yeah.
Tenant's okay.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, you know, practical, and then it went to all CGI, and now everybody's like, practical.
I imagine we'll swing back to CGI at some point.
Or is it referred to AI?
Oh no, the AI! Oh my god!
Oh no,
that's a completely different horror story. We want things to be real, unless they're a giant cyborg dinosaur. Then I want to be nowhere near it. So,
exactly. No, I appreciate that.
We'll pose with it at the movie premiere, though. We're quite happy to do that. Yeah.
I'm working on it. You know, like we're going to do the comic book series, then we'll turn it into a movie. I mean,
nice.
We just got to continue to continue to do this stuff. I'm going to take my own advice. Just get it out to everybody. Get that idea stuck in everybody's heads.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool.
And where can people find you online, etc.?
You can find me via X, which was formerly known as Twitter, and that's Geo Parsons at Geo Parsons. And then you can follow me on Instagram, which is the same handle, at Geo Parsons, And I only got into it because I wanted to be able to connect with people and get these ideas out to an audience. And besides that, I can't stand social media.
Yeah, I like it. I like it when ladies do yoga on there. That's all I'm interested in.
That's a different conversation we need to have, Tony.
Okay, fine.
But I think that's a different app.
Hey,
Vince and Dan and Tony, you guys. I mean, this was fantastic. I can't thank you guys enough for giving me the opportunity to come on.
Oh yeah,
it's great stuff. So I really appreciate it.
And we're looking forward to seeing where this crazy story goes.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
And welcome back. So
that was informative and what a fun dude. Nice dude.
Thanks to Geo for joining us this week. And little did I know how important he was going to be, because they behaved themselves during that interview. But no, in all seriousness, it's a great comic. You need to check it out if you like big monsters.
They're a great company, you know, just putting out solid, fun horror. I think I've read nearly everything they put out recently, and I've really enjoyed it. I got
nice one.
Yeah, nice dudes. Yeah.
So definitely go forth and check out all of that. And speaking of other stuff to check out, do we have any shout outs this week, gents?
I was going to give a shout out to the Satanic Flea Market where I was today. So Falby booked it up. We went and did the Satanic Flea Market. It's our second time doing it, actually. This time round, we're in the sort of heavy metal room, which is sort of slightly darker, with music playing and stuff, which is kind of the hub for it, really. So like Savage Pencil, Jason Atomic, Simon Davis, a few other people who were in that room. So there's a good amount of comic people there, you know, and absolutely packed. I can't think of a comic convention in this country that it wouldn't be envious of the amount of people who came to that event. It was just back to back throughout the whole day. In it, big shout out to Zach. So I bumped into listener Zach, who's becoming a bit of a comics creator himself, and he's a listener. Nice dude, came over, nice dude. Also managed to finally meet Ed Pinsent, who he and I have been at the same comics events for probably 40 years, if not more. And he was with a guy who calls himself the House of Harley. But generally, if you've got a comic that's a bit out there, it's not for everyone, I think. But if you've got a comic that has that edge to it, you know, I think it's a worthwhile event. We had half a table, which was £35, so that's good value.
That's great, yeah.
Especially compared to the amount of people. Lot of sales, good sales. Lot of beer.
Excellent.
absolutely, you wouldn't believe how friendly everyone was. It was lovely, genuinely. People on either side of us. The one lady was sort of selling these sort of picture things. She had her dog, so we're sort of playing with her dog. The other lady she said, "I bought a load of cheese and biscuits. Have some cheese and biscuits with us, lads." It's like that. It was like the nicest.
It's weird because off the rip, you wouldn't think Satanists would be like that.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, if I said that to my mum, I'm going to a Satanist convention. She's not really religious, but she'd be like, "What?"
Yeah, I know.
She would double take that.
The one lady came over, and the good thing about it for our books is, when people come to the table and we have to say to them, "Gets a bit lively, that comic."
Oh, you don't have to say it.
Be a bit careful. Don't have to say it, man. You do not have to say it. One lady came over and read the whole of Atomic Hercules 1 while standing at the table with a massive grin on her face that we were just chuckling as she was reading this comic. And she put it down, gave us a bit of a wink, and wandered off. And it was like, I don't mind that. I didn't mind it. It's lovely. Yeah, but I'd recommend it if you've got a Camilla was there also as well, who's just kickstarted Rusalka with Strangers, so I got to go and have a chat with her. Do you remember last time we did Thought Bubble? She was behind us, and I went and got a copy of her comic to send to Eddie at Strangers, and now he's taken it on as one of the books he's publishing, which is a nice
there you go, nice
story. Yeah, so I popped upstairs. She was upstairs, went and saw her. But yeah, I'd say if you've got something that's maybe a little bit underground, a little bit edgy, there's a few people here who it would be suitable for. I'd recommend it. It starts at 12, ends at 6, so it's not like a massive all weekend thing. It's good. Lovely people, and setup was a dream. All right, lads, as we arrived, where are you? Just a chat.
Brilliant.
Yeah, highly recommended.
Because when you told me about it, I was like, God, at a tribute press at the Satanists thing, like foul, loathsome individuals who turn their back on God. And but enough about tribute press. The Satanists.
I knew that.
Probably knew that was coming.
Yeah, but it was still worth it.
Yeah, so it was good. So that was my first shout. My second one is Uncle Pat Mills mentioned me in his Substack today. Absolutely choked me up, man. Really nice, and that dude is a big reason we're here. Yeah, there's no two ways about it.
Yes.
A big reason a lot of people are into comics. It's the nicest thing ever, and he's giving back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's good. Yeah, so thanks. Big shout out to Pat. I've emailed him. He knows, but a big shout out to him as well for that. So there you go. They're my two.
Nice, Dan. What have you got?
My first recommendation is not recommendation. Whatever this is. Fucking going off the road already. It's a callback.
What's happening to him?
I don't know. I think it's worn off, Tony. Whatever he was on for the past.
It's a callback to earlier in the show when I mentioned Bloop and the Pigeon Pandemic.
Oh yeah.
The next one's up and running. We've got an 88-page full color comic continuing the adventures of Bloop, the Green Martian Scout who's always getting into trouble, and that's kickstarting now. We've got a little way off his target, so a little help and push, and that's from Alex Han. And to take that over the target, we've got Underground Kingdom Comics presents a comic book anthology showcasing UK cartoonists.
I'll back this.
Nice one. This is by Matt Greaves, and it's got our friends
Forty and Falpy.
And Falpy.
Yeah, both in it.
Both in it, and scrolling through it, there's an absolutely wealth of talent in that book. That looks absolutely fantastic. And from your boy Shane Chebsney, we've got Adult Human Female 2024, a giant-sized art calendar featuring girls of Jimmy Broxton's fully loaded comic book.
Jimmy Broxton's a great artist.
Okay.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, I think his mates have changed, isn't he? I think they're buddies. But yeah,
looking down on that, some fantastic artwork in that. Big total on that, so we'll be checking in that as the weeks flick by to see how that goes.
Yeah, it's worth a look at if you're into Jimmy's art. Yeah, it's lovely stuff. Really is good. Yeah.
And
I've got go on.
No, go on.
No, I've got my contest thing to talk about.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So the time for fun's over. Let's talk about.
Oh no! What is you encouraging him, Vince?
All I said was,
right.
Yeah, you can talk.
You go for it. Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I don't think if people remember, we ran a Halloween comic contest, and the idea was you send in a 3-page script. And among the panel, we'd sort through them, read them through, and say, right, this is the best one. And I illustrated it. Last time it was Tony Vanras, and he did his one
From Belgium, I believe, isn't
yes.
he? Yeah.
We met him at the last football we went to.
That's right. Yeah. Nice guy.
So over Halloween, I'm going to be looking to put together a horror comic, this title of which we're still working on. And I thought, you know what, let's give people a shout and see if they got a script that they want to put in this book. So like last time, I'm looking for a 3-page horror script. Writing wise, don't think anything risky that you'd find in like a horror film. You could fire up now, or something from like the 1980s. So kind of like gore, boobs and stuff, but that's kind of like the limit. Don't go too much more mental than that. I was looking more for, if you've never had a story published before, always wanted to give it a shot, this is like
that's a great offer, mate.
The thing for you.
Yeah.
If you've done loads of comics and stuff, fine, you can submit it. But I'd rather it from someone who's kind of, this is relatively new for them, to give them a bit of a punt, a bit of a chance to see what it's like getting their work out in an anthology and get it drawn essentially for free. So I will be kickstarting the comic, so there'll be some remuneration for the person entering their script, be that as kind of some comp copies or whatever. After the comic's done, that artwork's yours. You can do with whatever you want with it, put it online, put it in other anthologies, give it as a present, whatever you want to do is totally yours. So what we're looking to do is, the entry deadline is going to be Friday the 21st of October. If you send in your 3-page script to the Awesome Comics Pod email and title it Horror Script 2023 or something similar, and we'll read them through. We're putting this out each week and going up to the contest deadline. And Friday 21st will be deadline. Sunday after that, we'll say who the winner is, and then they'll be able to see their work in that comic. I very look forward to seeing the stuff come in, because last time it was a real kind of
we had real fun reading it, actually. I think we all agreed, didn't we? But we did have a little backwards and forwards on which one it should be.
There was a couple of contenders, but I think Tony's was that. We all kind of gravitate towards that. Like, this is really good.
I hear there's somebody called Boney Desmond who's got a very saucy story he's written.
Never published before. So I've spoken to Tony actually, and his comic, as far as I'm aware, hasn't been published either. So I'm going to be putting a retouched version of that in this book. So you're going to be able to see the past competition and the current one.
Oh, nice.
So there you go.
Nice.
Good.
Nice. And speaking of which, one more. If you're around this Saturday, 7th of October 2023, if you're about in Bristol, then go to the Doubletree by Hilton for Comic Expo. You might see me wandering its halls, looking lost.
Isn't it the same weekend as it's not Cake, is it? Whatever. There's a zine fair in Bristol the same weekend, isn't there?
Is there really? I don't know.
I think so. Yeah, so it's going to be. But it's going to be a good one to go to if you want to go to a city and get to a couple of festivals in a weekend. That's a cracker. That is. Yeah.
It's loads of creators. Alan Davis, Liam Sharp. There's just Shaky Kane's going to be there. Lou Stringer. just a whole shitload of great creators. And like I say, I'll be looking lost. So hope to see you there.
Go and get some OA off Shaky. Go and get some.
Yeah.
Tickets will be adults £10, child £5. Under 12s, free.
That's a good price, mate. 10 quid's a reasonable price compared to some of the stuff I've seen recently. And that's all right.
You might see me hovering around a classic UK art exhibition from the classic comics. So,
cool.
What I do. So,
report back from that one, babes.
Yeah, I shall do. Expect that next week. But first, this week, on to the recommends. But we're going to start the recommends with something a little bit eerie.
We promised it last week, didn't we?
Yeah. What are we doing throughout this month? We talked about an insane Humble Bundle. I don't know how long it's going for.
It's about the size of a terabyte hard drive, isn't it?
Yes. Eerie, the classic sort of horror anthology series from, when did it start?
71? No, it's not. It's I'm going to say it's like 70, 69, something like that, I think. Yeah.
Which is a series that was from the editors of Creepy, if you know those sort of anthology series.
And Vampirella. Yeah.
There is these archive collections, which are enormous. And Humble Bundle has, I think 30 books.
Did you see the thing that Mark Miller put out this week?
No.
So somebody has posted a lady in stockings and high heels in front of a bookcase. like a sexy picture. And the reply to it was just, "Oh, you've got all of the Eerie archives. That must be really expensive."
Yeah.
And he's like, I love comic fans. That's like the best thing ever. Yeah.
Sure enough, there is a big volume of these things. So we talked a good game, but we decided to actually get them. So some of us got all of them. Some
Broke
of us
my
got,
iPad.
But even if we just got one book, we've still got hundreds and hundreds of pages of horror comics to read. And sure enough, because it's anthology, in each week through these 5 episodes, I believe it's 5 episodes of horror, we're just going to pick one out just to highlight. We'll tell you what volume it is from. And, it's not going to be a whole in-depth review.
No.
But certainly we're going to kick it off in style. And I'm going to kick off first, I think. I'm going to be greedy here.
You got issue 1, page 1, I was saying.
I went straight to the first one. Volume 1, which collects Eerie 1 to 5. And I started with the first story itself. And if you're wondering, well, I don't know anything, about Eerie. I don't know what sort of creators are on it. On the inside cover, check out this list, right? As it says, the artists and writers. Okay. Eugene Colan, Jack Davis, Reed Crandall, Steve Ditko, Frank Frazetta, Rocco Mastroserio, Gray Morrow, Joe Orlando, John Severin, Jay Tacey, Angelo Torres, Alex Toth, Al Williamson, Wallace Wood, Roy Krenkel, Donald Norman, Dan Adkins. Writers, Archie Goodwin, Ron Parker, Carl Wessler, E. Nelson Bridwell, Iando Binder, and Larry Avi. And editor, Archie Goodwin. It's a bit of a lineup, isn't it?
That's good. And that's interesting, that first issue there, because obviously you've got the sort of little bit of history before it where EC had kind of brought on the Comics Code. Yeah. And what happened, the reason that this is a black and white magazine is the Comics Code didn't apply to black and white magazine size things. So which is why they did this. Yeah, and a lot of the characters you've got there had been in EC as well previously.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the fucking absolute legends in it, man. And we're in Mad Magazine as well, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just, I tell you what, these archives, I can already tell I'm just going to have so much fun pouring through these.
Man, they're lovely. I got a full set of the Vampirella ones.
Yeah.
Just beautiful to have on a shelf. Yeah.
And this one, first issue from number 1 in September. It was a Warren magazine. And my tale that I'm going to just quickly recommend is The Image of Bluebeard, which is the first story.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't say on some of the later stories. It has the creator's name.
Credits.
Does it have it at the end? I don't think it does.
Usually got them at the bottom on the first page. You have to, it's almost like typed in on the bottom of the first page.
But it doesn't have it on this one.
Oh, right.
Which is unusual, because I did notice, I thought, oh no, am I not going to know the artists going on? But as I read further on, I realised that they were doing that.
Right.
And in fact, I posted a page earlier on social media, and it's very clear.
What a cracking page, man.
Oh, just unbelievable. But this was very much a sort of a classic EC Comics kind of period set macabre tale of a newlywed with her husband. They go out to a sort of a house sort of in the middle of nowhere. He's keeping, they're very secluded. He won't let her leave, and as she goes on, it's a very short tale, and it sort of narrates it classically, but as she reads a bit more and she finds a book about the famous Bluebeard, that fairy tale, that sort of folklorish tale, and she starts to believe that the man that she married is turning into him, or is him. Ergo, we get the classic death and a story with a sting in its tail with a nice bit of reveal. And I picked this one because it's just glorious, like the ink work and the washes. I mean, they've done a cracking job.
How do you fit that whole image on page 1? It's incredible to me, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just
So it's a man standing at the bottom of a long driveway up.
No, that's not this story.
Sorry, man. I'm thinking of a different one. Right. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. That's one you sent us, wasn't it? Yeah.
On the first tale, you have 3 sort of detectives going into sort of a barn, and there seems to be a a body hanging up from the ceiling, because at the same time as all this happening, there is the Bluebeard serial killer happening. So you've got that happening in the background. So when she starts to suspect that her husband is this killer. But the line work's wonderful. It's quick and easy to read. As soon as I started this, I just think, fuck, man, there's so much.
They knew how to tell a story about them, and that's the thing. In EC's the same, and this is a direct descendant of EC.
Yeah.
Is they told fucking amazing stories in 5 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's usually there's about 6 panels to a page, bit less if they wanted to use like a long landscape sort of panel for a bit of a reveal, or they wanted to open it up cinematically for the sting in the end of its tail. But it's just so good, isn't it? There's so much to learn, I think. That's why, never mind the cool horror stuff, which you get loads of in these books, but I was looking through thinking, God, that's a brilliant way to make comics. That's a brilliant way to make. So my one, the first one, which is the Image of Bluebeard, just a great it's a brilliant way to start this series. Immediately I was hooked in from that one.
Nice.
Who wants to go next?
Shall I go next?
Sure.
Mine's Eerie 32 from March 1971. I went further into the series. The issue's got a Corbin cover, which is beautiful, which looks like me and my missus on a night out. I sent it to you.
That did make me laugh out loud.
If you look at the bottom left of the cover, there's a small insert which sort of says a superhero in Eerie. So it's sort of, and there's a reason. So the main story I did is the lead off story in that, and it's by Steve Skeets who wrote it and Tom Sutton who drew it. And it leads off with Cousin Eerie, who is the crypt keeper stroke sort of Tharg host in these comics. Who's just this sort of weird, spotty, fucking horrible geezer who introduces each story, and it works really well.
Kind of like an Igor kind of character, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, isn't he? Yeah. So this is pure fucking satire. I hadn't read this before, and I randomly picked this issue, and this was the first thing. But it's a very thinly veiled pastiche on Batman, and it's a superhero called Crime Crusher, who is just super brutal. And it's so thinly veiled, but he works in a city called Gotham, so OM at the end rather than AM, and he literally crushes the bodies of evildoers, or so the ineffectual police believe him to. Even Commissioner Gormon can't help. So they get the villains, the gangsters get this sniper, this fast shooter through called Ollie Twitchett to kill Crime Crusher. Ollie Twitchett is straight out of Dick Tracy or a Batman villain from the 50s or something. And there's something going on here you don't realise until you hit the last page. And when you hit the last page, you realise that he's draining the blood from the gangsters. And in the sky, you see a bat flying away, silhouetted against the moon. It's just, I mean, Skeets and Sutton were men who both worked for the Big Two, but they're just full on pastiching, full on taking the piss about them out of the American superhero industry, in the pages of Eerie. And it's Tom Sutton, absolutely class. I mean, he's great in this, but he's channeling Wally Wood when Wally Wood did Super Duper Man in issue 1 of Mad Magazine. It's got that written all over it. And Skeets is just absolutely remorseless, and exposes superheroes as being these sort of self-centered, self-serving, violent idiots who have this sort of underlying thing that we don't realize. And in this case, it shows that it's a vampire. It plays on the comedy this more than you get in a lot of Eerie stuff. It could fit in a Mad Magazine, put it that way. It's got that sort of cartooning style to it. But I just sort of thought, I'm just going to randomly pick an issue. And I read this, the first thing I read, and I'm like, fucking hell, I've never read that before. Ain't that good? Why don't people talk about this? Yeah, it's one of those sort of things. But yeah, from March 1971.
Nice.
And people are still living off that now.
Yeah. Dan, what's yours?
Mine's from Eerie 11, and it's called Big Change. And it follows the story of 2 wastrels who were like kind of criminal freeloaders, a man and a woman. They're like a couple going around getting out shenanigans and on the run from the police. So they get on the train somewhere else in the States, and they realize there's this old boy who's got a load of money. So their plan is get him married to the girl, kill him, and then get all his money. But all the way through, like he's taking this medicine, and he's like, "Quick, you got to give me my medicine before." And then he says, "Oh, don't worry, dear. Here's your medicine." And he keeps saying, "You got to give it to me before." So right, where's this going to go? So when they're married, they say, "Right, we're going to fucking not give him the medicine. He's going to die." But it's actually to stop him transforming into a werewolf, which he does.
Cool.
And then rains down holy terror on both of them. It's a really nice little twist. And basically, his whole family has been crippled with this lycanthropism. Is that the word? And they have to take this medicine, which makes them crippled, and they can only stand these in a wheelchair. But actually, he's quite a sprightly fellow when he takes it. And at the end, he's like, "Oh, actually, I quite liked having people around the house. I'll put a wanted ad for a maid and a butler in the paper." Yes. So all's well that end well.
There you go. Happy ending.
Yeah.
Nice. So that's the first three. I mean, Dan. I mean, when you're reading it, what kind of experience did you have, guys? Sort of reading these in terms of.
Well, I've read a lot, Warren, and you always know there's something nasty is going to end up. You know, and they took full advantage of not having to go through the comics code, so it does get a bit lively in them. The different artists, so there's a fluidity, a more of a sort of cool style to it than a lot of the EC stuff may more of a European style, put it that way, I suppose.
Yeah, I think some artists sort of they push it a little more than you see in other sort of tales. Like for instance,
I mean, Ditko's in a lot of them.
Yeah,
there's some really interesting characters.
I read a fantastic one about this guy stayed in a hotel. It's only a couple of pages long, but there's like things in the mirror. This mirror.
No one does a shocked face better than Ditko, I think.
And it's brilliant, but like the layers that he's got with like inks and like whether it's like watercolors or like ink washes or whatever, I'm not used to seeing that. I mean, I don't know Steve Ditko as much as many people are out there, but you know, when you think of Steve Ditko, you obviously think of the Marvel comics, don't you? You know, the shorthand, that way of colouring. So seeing this was like a whole different perspective of an artist.
Yeah.
And just thinking, wow, like these guys and gals could just put their foot down.
Funny enough, in my story, there's a bit of Ayn Rand. He takes the piss out of Ayn Rand in that as well, which obviously Ditko was a massive fan of, wasn't he? I was thinking about Ditko in that. Yeah,
it's good that they kind of like some of the art, like they're going back to the old school kind of pen and inks, and you're getting texture and kind of all that kind of stuff you explored with the pen and ink, and not going on to the digital colouring stuff or using colour. I really like, for me, horror and black and white is like, that's my fucking jam.
See, that scary, nasty, weird element was also present in a lot of the early 2000 AD that I was reading around the same time as well.
Yeah.
And I think that really works for comics. We don't see enough of it, to be fair.
I always preferred 2000 AD in black and white. The coloured stuff never really... I don't mind the covers and stuff and pin-ups, whatever, but generally I really like it in black and white. It's the kind of the starkness of it.
Yeah, I'm finding more enjoyment out of a lot of black and white stuff these days, actually. And I mean, but it's interesting.
Depends on the story in the comic.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And that was interesting because part of this bundle you get like one of the recent Dark Horse Eerie volumes, one of their recent collections, the new ones they'll be doing, and there's some of those that don't hit for me.
Yeah,
okay.
There's a modern way of storytelling, and like there's some brilliant artists, and I read them and I think fair enough, but I don't think it fits with this.
The new one was American comic size as well. They didn't do it as a magazine size format, and something about those magazines almost made it feel more adult, more dangerous for me in a way. I don't know why.
Yeah. So there's I don't know. I think I'm going to find more joy out of a lot of like the older.
So we're going to do one of these every week, are we? Is that the plan?
Just pick out a little story and say, okay, here's the volume, here's the issue. Check out this one. When
the artists are fucking amazing in these comics.
Loving it. Yeah.
Don't be surprised, listeners, if you see me just posting some screenshots of look at this panel, look at this page, because seriously, some of
that one you posted today, mate, I fucking love it. I'll print that out and have it on my wall.
In volume 1 as well. There's an issue called The Invitation, and there's the beginning of that. The first page of that story is unreal. It's unreal. If only I knew who the artist was, but I'll post that as well. I'm going to be posting a lot of like wonderful black and white art. Basically, that's what I'm telling you.
The internet, I'll tell you.
Yeah. And speaking of the internet, let's talk about some comics and where they can get them. Because we've already started the recommendations, because read Eerie. That's my recommendation.
Yeah.
But we've also got some other
20
comics
quid well spent, that was.
Indeed. And Tony, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so my first one is Bubbles, issue 17. I like to give a regular shout out to this magazine because I really do think that it's the backbone of American and UK-based underground comics. And I think people really need to know about it. It's only £8. Little hint for people in the UK, because it's not always easy to get it. You can get it through Third Bear Press, or you can put it on your pull list at Gosh as well, which I do. Even though it's not distributed through Diamond, Third Bear will get it to you, and Gosh get regularly sent it. So that's a little clue to you. It really is part of that, you put it, ecosystem really of US underground and indie. It's integral to it now, especially in the sort of recommendations and stuff. And this is, but it also box ticks the nostalgic stuff as well. And I think there's a book in here you'll like, Dan. It starts off with an interview with MS Harkness. Do you remember we talked about her when I reviewed, pardon me, Rust Belt Review? And it's the one where she blows up her boyfriend's ball bag and floats away from a bank robbery. Do you remember? This has got to be a really, I'm not sure, but I think this is a really up-to-date interview, because he starts off it by asking her how she's enjoying TCAF, which isn't that long ago. She's done another book called Tinderella, which is an autobiocomic, which is pretty good as well, and actually goes somewhere. People take some chances in it. Comics creator Dash Shaw, he writes quite a funny piece about how he pretends that he read the Inkle, but he thinks he does. He's not sure, which is, I think, understandable for a lot of people who think they've read the Inkle at some point. You know, but it's bizarrely illustrated with Eisner spirit panels, where a page of a newspaper blows into the spirit's face, which I thought was applicable. It's strange. There's a great chat between Josh Bayer and Raymond Pettibone, which echoes content in a book that I'm currently in the middle of reading called Unended, which is Josh Bayer's new graphic novel that I bought from him at SPX. Massive Bayer fan, man. He is great. And I haven't finished it yet, but already it's in the top 10 this year for me, I've got to tell you. Wow. And they talk influences and approach and all this sort of thing. I would say Bubbles probably on its own is worth it just for that interview. There's a great thought piece on what is real and what is fantasy in comics and how it should be addressed through the comics medium, which is just this really interesting thought piece. I thought, how do you counterpoint and compare reality when it switches to fantasy on a page? That's interesting, isn't it? How do we do it?
Yeah.
What do we think when it happens? And he uses 4 graphic novels to illustrate that. There's a 2-pager, this is comics in it as well. There's a 2-pager called Park Jerk by Carla Paloma about a dude who tells his female friend whether she wants to hear it or not about the sexcapades and boning he did on holiday. And then there's this, I think I texted you with this, guys, earlier, didn't I? There's this great concept they have in there, which is 10 comics with. And if you moved somewhere and you had no books or comics, what would you buy back first? And the guest comes on and he thinks, well, you know, what? I mean, it gets the mind working, doesn't it? But for
That's
ourselves,
a fucking nightmare scenario.
Yeah, firstly, it'd break your heart, wouldn't it? But secondly, you would think, well, what would I get straight away? So have it on the shelf, have it available. And it's not necessarily the books that you've had real moments with. It might be there's a lot to it, isn't there? So it's quite an interesting one. There's a round table about comics in China, and then there's a piece by Buddy Shah about Takakiko Inui's Vagabond Samurai comic. Have you read that, anyone?
No.
You'd like that, Vagabond. You'd like it. I think you both like it, especially you, maybe you, Dan. It's really good. There's loads of recommendations in Bubbles. It's nice to see, actually, that we've recommended on here a lot of the comics that they cover. So it's kind of nice that we know what we're talking about compared, because Bubbles is the hotness, isn't it? You know. And he also does quick reviews of books he's been sent, which is quite nice. And there's a nice, on the back page, there's a nice advert for my new buddies at Atomic Books. So go to, if you're in the States, go to bubblezine.com. You can go to bubbles-zine on Instagram. If not, go to Third Bear Press, get a copy there. I think he's got a back catalogue of what they've got there, as has Gosh. They've got a few of the back issues in there. But yeah, it's just a nice read. It's not expensive. It's fairly cheaply black and white produced. It has the same paper stock on the cover as it does inside. It's just this stapled magazine-sized magazine that's just about comics. It's great. Yeah, so get on that. Bubbles. That's my first one.
Nice. Dan, what's yours?
I dipped back into, I'm a little bit behind, so I got caught up. I've read issues 2 and 3 of Void Rivals.
Oh,
Have you
cool.
guys been reading this?
Yeah.
I read issue 2, but I haven't continued with it yet. I need to get back into it.
Do you want me to do? There's a little bit of a spoiler of a character coming up in it.
I'm alright
Do you-
with it.
do you want me to-
but
Yeah, go on.
warnings,
Yeah, I'm
warnings to the listeners.
So, like the two, it's great. I'm really enjoying this. It's a real great sci-fi comic. The two characters, kind of like from opposing sides and factions, realize that there's a lot more in common between them and their respective homeworlds than perhaps they realize, and they sort of team up to kind of get off this world they've been stranded on. One of the big reveals in the first issue was this is set in the same universe as the Transformers, which issue 1 of the new series by Danny Warren Johnson starts October 8th, I think it comes out.
Oh, is it next week? Is it? Okay.
Yeah, so
Right.
that's going to be a big comic.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're calling it. Is it the Energon universe or something?
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So the two of them kind of like cobble together their spaceship and take off and end up in the space, and they land on this kind of an orbital ring, which is part of the story. And one of the creatures on there is a quintesson. And if you're au fait with the Transformers, that's another race in the big whole Transformers universe. So I thought it was just going to be a little nod to one of the characters in it in issue 1, but obviously there's a lot more to it. And just I kind of got to issue 3, and as soon as I finished it, I was like, oh man, I want to fucking go and read 4 now.
Yeah.
But well, I'm going to do that.
It's one of those comics that's a bit like Miller's comics as well. That it's bringing back that new comic book day excitement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's like, man, these are the kind of comics I really enjoy reading and really like. I kind of want to read this when it comes out. I should be getting back on it when they do drop. I'll get the next issue because you're along for the story. The art's great. The story's great. It makes you want to just find out what's going on. It's just it's always moving forward. Each issue is moving forward. Like the story's progressing. It's going somewhere. There's all these hidden motives and agendas. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I can't recommend it enough, really, just to get on board and go check it out. Lots of fun.
Nice.
Good work, man.
Nice. My one this week is another issue 1. Yes, I'm going to keep doing this every single week now. And it is from Image Comics by Ryan Stegman. And hang on, I just want to make sure I get the credits completely right for this book because I don't want to leave anyone out. And if you go by just a stupid Amazon page, you never get them right, do you? They just don't. Story by Ryan Stegman and Kenny Porter. Art by Tyrell Cannon. Colours by Mike Spicer. Letters and design by John J. Hill. This is one that you may have seen on the internet. This is somewhere. This is issue 1 of The Schlub.
Oh, I've heard about this. Yeah. I haven't read it though.
No. Well, I did, Tony. And,
well done, you.
What? Thank you. What is The Schlub? Well, basically, failing dentist Roger Dalton blames the world for his problems until he is body swapped with the world's greatest superhero. Can Roger save Earth and finally prove to his family he's not a loser, or are we all doomed? It's a body swap superhero story, which
cool.
I do you know what? I didn't know any of that going into that. That's the first time I've ever read that synopsis, because I saw bits of artwork. A huge fan of Tyrell's work as well. He did. He's been doing some like the Alien fanzine comic that we talked about a while ago, and he's been sort of.
Yeah, I got that actually. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
I bought it off him at New York.
Yeah,
he's a nice guy. Yeah.
And this is his first sort of Image comic series, so he was hugely excited about. And his art sings in this. We were talking about black and white art. I would love to see the black and white pages as well. I mean, the colours by Mike Spicer are great. It is a sort of it's a bright daytime Technicolor sort of comic book, like a superhero book. And immediately you get stuck in. The story pretty much tells you that Roger Dalton he's basically shit. It says within the first couple of pages he sucks. This is why he's rubbish, but he blames the world for like his failings. And as there's a brilliant first page, which is the classic from within someone's mouth as a dentist is working on them. But he's not even really paying attention to it fully. So there's lots of like visual and physical comedy going on, and then all of a sudden that little scene is disrupted when a superhero fight bursts through the dentist's office, and is it Cirrus or Cirrus? Yes, I think is the character's name. And you've got one guy who's basically sucks, and the superhero is amazing, and it basically talks about like how awesome he is. He's basically like this comic sort of Superman, but he's fighting with like a villain, and the character designs are great. The actual superhero design kind of like it felt like rather than being like a Superman, it had a sort of like a 90s image, or like, you know, Malibu's Prime, kind of like those kind of influences to it. You know, this is a big, bulky, and Tyrell's work has that sort of big, bulky muscles, all muscles on guns. As it says. Sorry, there's a spaced reference for you. But also the villain is like a brilliant sort of sci-fi. It's like he's like a corpse. He's like a sorcerer who's a corpse who's kept the body alive, so he can get the MacGuffin, which they're both fighting over at this particular sort of alien shard. While they're fighting, it gets dropped. Roger picks it up and goes, "What does this do?" And he presses it, and it swaps him with the hero. It said in the synopsis it's a body swap story, so I haven't spoiled anything for you there. When I was reading it, I didn't expect the body swap story, so I was kind of like, "Oh, that's what we're getting, is it?" I don't know why I didn't know quite what I was going to get with this issue. The thing that makes it different for me really, is like the main character, the protagonist. It's like this amazing superhero has been put in this sort of schlubby body, and he's got to figure out what to do. Now he's like in a normal overweight man's sort of body, whereas this guy who's a bit of a dickhead suddenly has the powers of a god, and he's got an axe to grind with some of his like family or like people he's fallen out with. So you got the character saying, "You just look, you need to control your powers, because if you don't do this, the world is doomed." But you put those powers in the mind of someone that is so small-minded they think about their own personal goals. so the story immediately, the cliffhanger for the first issue sort of makes you think, "Oh right, this is," and it even sort of says this is not going to go well. I thought, oh, that's quite, that's a nice sort of take on it. I'm not normally sort of a body swap sort of story guy really.
Okay.
But this one, I was interested in seeing how it's delivered. I'm interested to see like issue 2. I'm with a lot of these. I'm going to try and get an issue 2 to see where this goes, see if it delivers on the first issue. I know one thing, it's going to look absolutely great. It was also interesting to me that this was a Stegman sort of concept as well. So maybe it might be born of like a bunch of creators to a convention just sort of saying coming up with a concept and then just doing it. It's got an energy to it like that I feel. This book has a lot more energy than, well, a lot of superhero sort of books have really. There's effects and there's action and there's big lettering. I would say, Dan, I'd be interested to see what you think of this first issue.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah, because there's a modern sort of sensibility. It does a lot of things. There is a little cameo from Daniel Warren Johnson.
Nice.
Running away from giant alien monsters with a murder. I knew it was him because he's got a big beard, baseball cap, and a Murder Falcon t-shirt. Oh, and he's carrying pens when he's running away. So I'm guessing it must be him. But no, the Schlub #1. It's another tick.
Who put that? Is that an image book? You say
that is an image book? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The one thing, like the cover is I don't know. The cover's great. The cover is great, but it's almost like it should be a little more bombastic. It's a fascinating one because you have the mighty hero sort of in the background, and you've got this normal guy, sort of a little Danny DeVito sort of squat little figure in front of him. And it's interesting in the way that you look more at the little guy at the front than you do at the big figure behind. It's an interesting the way where the eye is drawn. It kind of works as a whole, but it's definitely seems like the focus is on this pudgy little bastard who could doom us all. So yeah, the Schlub from Image. Check it out. See what you think. Let me know what you think. And another issue 1 in the bag. Tony,
Nice.
what would you like to
Yeah, last one, The Troublemakers by Baron Yoshimoto, 248 pages, black and white and color. So it does that manga thing of has some stories have an opener of 4 pages in color.
Yeah.
Edited and translated by Ryan Holmberger, we talked about before, and is closely associated with writes articles for Bubbles, actually. Published by Retrofit, who we haven't talked about for a while, but Retrofit are in partnership with Avery Hill. So they're kind of, in a way, they're like the American Avery Hill, because they have a distribution model where they each distribute each other's books in the UK and in America. It takes place mostly in post-war Japan, which, as we previously experienced in books when we did Manga Month, especially, is a time of much change. And there's a lot of darkness in Japan at the time. This addresses mostly normal people, although there is a sort of wartime action element to a part of it. Yoshimoto was one of the pioneers of Gekiga in Japan, which was the book aimed at an older audience in the 60s and 70s, and even Tezuka would follow some of his work in tone. Warnings, though, as with a lot of this manga that we've seen that's been translated, it is of its time. So there is racism, there's sexuality, there's a lot of men and women interacting in perhaps ways that we wouldn't find acceptable now, but are historically accurate, in the country. It's dark but very enthralling, and there's in all of them a redemption arc. It's not like it ends badly for everyone. There is a form of redemption in what happens. The first story is you'll understand what I'm saying. The first story is Eriko's happiness, and this again, the morals of the time, but she's a girl who's about to leave high school, which makes her, I looked this up, makes her 18. And she spends 2 hours a week with an older businessman in his flat. He's got one of those sort of city flats. He's clearly I would say probably a married man with children, but he works in big business in this Japanese city. I'm taking it's Tokyo, and he has a flat, and she spends 2 hours a week with him, feeds sparrows on the balcony, enjoys the time in the flat, but also has sex with him. And she weirdly cherishes it. There's a strange cross between sexuality, naivety, and almost a Stockholm syndrome. And it ends with something bad happening to 2 people, but not her, which is an interesting way to tell the story. It's so interesting. It's so, engrossing to follow these stories. There's a story called Nostalgia, which is a man who starts off with him by the sea. And he's in a Japanese small town by the sea, and he's not Japanese. He's a stranger, and he's because of that he works for a farming regiment, I'm guessing, and so the army were employed to farm the land and stuff like that. Try and get Japan back on its feet after the horrors at the end of the Second World War. And every day a girl comes to see him, and she looks at his art paintings and she comments on it, and she ends up saying, like, I like coming to see you every day. I like to see your art, and I like to chat to you. And he's very struck by this. And there's a lovely twist at the end of that, which you have to pay attention with, or you'll miss. Giving up a reasoning why she enjoyed the company of this loner almost. It really interesting. There's a really effective story called The Girl and the Black Soldier, which is very much of its time, but is again puts you through it, but comes out with the right decision, put it that way. And it's an action piece, and it very much does reflect. It happens in France between a French girl and a black GI, but it reflects the atmosphere that was going on in Japan at the time. If that makes sense. The artwork, if you looked at this book, you'd think it's a different artist in every story.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, really interesting. This is much looser, but it's got some fantastic and fast-moving action scenes in it, but has this thing that happens. And it plays on preconceptions, that people have. That's why, a lot of racism exists, because people presuppose stuff which they perhaps shouldn't do. Yeah, very different. Holmberg uses the phrase trashy stereotypes when he talks about the writing in this. There's a great article at the back, and I think that's a great descriptor for this and a lot of other books of the time. But the Baron, as I like to call him, he really does handle real people really interestingly, and he was a guy who lived a life. There's a comment by Holmberg in the back that says he spent a lot of time with strippers, war heroes, and he gives that faint realism. He gives that taint of realism about them. He did it really interesting. I'm so desperate to read this, but it's just not translated. He did a 9,000 page comic called Legends of Judo Chivalry.
Jesus Christ, 9,000.
How good is that? Do you know what I mean?
Not if it's boring. 9,000 fucking pages. Jesus.
Looks amazing. But he says he had a knowledge of gambling and the sex industry. So I don't know what old the Baron... I sent you a picture of him earlier. Do you remember? Yeah. He was like a Japanese dude with a cowboy hat. And what a dude.
Yeah.
What a fucking dude. So he did all these comics in the 70s, in the late 60s, in the 60s and the 70s, all the way through to 1980. And he went, "Nah, fuck this." And he traveled to America, didn't do any more comics, came back, and then was a fine artist and would just do paintings and stuff. He says, "I've done that." And he's kind of like, he's one of those blokes who just does it, ruled it, and then said, "I'll move on now." You know, one of these sort of things. And he also does, as I've said, dress up like he's a 1970s Western country and Western singer, which I kind of admire. But there's very little other than an art book you can find on Amazon. There's virtually nothing there translated by him. So I kind of applaud Holmberg and Retrofit for bringing this stuff back, because Holmberg was responsible for Bat Kid as well. Do you remember that book, the sort of post-war thing that I talked about a while ago? But yeah, the Troublemakers, masterclass in storytelling, just brilliant.
Oh, great!
Fuck, this is his pen name. Think of a pen name, Baron Yoshimoto. That's a pen name I'd want.
Yeah, that's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Baron's a great name.
the Count Vincent Hunt. It's like just calling yourself that and just going with it. You know what I mean? It's like,
just give yourself a title. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lord Dan Butcher.
Yeah.
Works for me.
Lordy Lord.
The Lord.
So loads of comics for you to check out and get your hands on and discover, read, enjoy, be influenced by, all of that good stuff. And we hope you enjoyed this week's episode and everything that we talked about. And just to basically, we got back on the rails a little bit towards the end.
Yeah, it went all right.
Yeah. It went a little bit off.
Yeah.
Some good stuff there.
Some observing viewers might notice we didn't go. Yeah, we was a little bit off.
We managed to get back to our everyday high bar of mediocre, so we're doing all right. But if there's anything you want us to talk about, especially now it is the spooky season leading up to Halloween special, if there's any comics or comics events, or if you got any fundraising or anything you want us to talk about in
the UI3 will be soon, guys. Any minute.
Yeah, keep an eye.
Can't wait.
But please,
our comic's very Halloweeny, isn't it?
Oh yeah. It's nice bit of spooky action from.
I got a proof copy here, so I've got it. Yeah.
Hey, nice one.
Yes, so if there's anything you want us to talk about, there's several different ways you can get in touch with us. You can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Follow us on social media @theawesomepod, where we'll be retweeting just good stuff and just comics positivity, which is what you will find on the Awesome Comics Podcast Slack community. A wonderful group of people on there. Get in touch with us. Join that group. There's different channels. There's different discussions, whether it be from books you just bought, maybe you want tips on the Kickstarter you're running, or just keep the conversation going on this particular episode and more. And just everything's on there. So, yeah, please join that because it's fantastic. And as is, well, our listeners, of which you are one, and thank you for very much. Thank you for very much. It's we're all so tired this week.
Oh, I'm so tired.
Yeah, I've lost it now. I was the last one to go, like a horror movie. Like a horror movie. I thought I survived, and
Vince is the final girl.
I'm always the final girl, baby.
Depends what you're doing.
Well,
but if you're doing any. Go on.
No, you go on. I feel like I'm looking forward to this. Go on.
No, I was going to say, if you kind of, this is a more serious matter, there's kind of loads of Halloween stuff going on and draw-offs and Inktober. Is that still a thing?
Yeah,
I think so. There's a couple of comments on the Slack about, are we going to have an Inktober's thread? And I think we probably should have.
I think we should, So anything you're doing, there's loads of prompts and loads of things out there, and that's kind of... what happened to that Inktober thing? There was a big drama over that, and it kind of never.
Oh, is that guy when he invented it or something?
Didn't he try to monetize it when everyone was like, "Fuck off"?
It's the internet kicked off, but people are just
the internet,
doing what they do.
It's one of those things. You make everything free, and everyone uses it, and then suddenly it's like, "Well, actually, I own this, and now you can't use it unless you pay your money." So, no, mate, don't worry about that.
That's not how it works. But what it does work like is we say thank you for listening to us, whether it was on the website
I don't know why I said
Comics. I don't know. It really got me going. No. Whether it is on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, leave a review, say something nice, subscribe, help the algorithm and all of that stuff. We really appreciate it because we shout about loads of books that you may not know about. So it's always better to get the word out into the wide open world. And elsewhere, if you found us on other networks such as Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What are the networks are we on, Tony?
We're on the Pod Network, lions, not sheep.
Indeed. And speaking of which, wherever you found us, sometimes we can be found elsewhere, or our work and various other stuff. Where can people find us, Tony?
Neverendingthing.com.
Dan.
You can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com. I'm just shaping up issue 22. They're probably releasing later this year. And you can find me... That's not out yet, no. And I'm still kind of hanging on by fingernails on Twitter, but no one else seems to be kind of frequenting that much anymore. I did make a Steven Seagal joke on there, which I thought was pretty good.
Well.
Yeah, that went well.
Yeah. And you can find me on social media at Jester Diablo. Thank you once again to Gio for joining us this week to talk about his comic. Definitely check out just The Beast.
Go to American Mythology. Get stuff there.
So The Beast of Bower Boulevard and more. And stay tuned because we'll be talking.
If you ever look at his Twitter, he's posted the cover for issue 2 and it's fucking spot on.
Nice. So do that now. Go do that now. Well, actually,
right now,
once we've hung up, which we're going to do now. So, wherever you are in the world, we hope you're happy, healthy, reading loads of comics and just making loads of comics. Right, try creating a little spooky short comic this month. Go on.
Or write a 3-page script.
Yeah, and send it to us, and then you never know how it might materialise.
Yeah,
but we're going to.
You could
go on.
You could send that off to a big boy, and they're like, "Oh my god, they got the chops to write comics."
We don't want a big boy. Calm down, Dan. We're not that podcast.
No, you know what I mean. Like if I drew it and you was like, "Oh my god, this art shit," but the script's great. Here's a contract to work at DC for this.
Blasphemous talk, Dan. I won't have that. I won't have that. It will look awesome. And you lovely people out there are awesome. So wherever you are in the world, we hope you're reading lots of comics you like and making lots of comics that you love. You're happy, healthy, and doing great. And in the next week or so, until you hear our voices being very unprofessional, what should they do, guys?
Stay
awesome.
See ya.
Bye.
Dan doesn't even say bye now.
I was waiting for him to say something.
Yeah.